warm welcome to you on the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibe. It's been 2 weeks since the National Assembly voted on constitutional amendment bills, and we're still examining the bills passed. This week, we'll bring you an interview with a public analyst where we discussed the implication of the passage of bills relating to devolution of powers and good governance. We'll bring you this interview later on in the program, but first, let's look at some of the key legislative activities in the National Assembly during the week. Now, we'll begin with some legislative decisions taken during the week, namely the resolution of the House of Representatives to conduct a status inquiry of the Nigeria Railway Corporation following the events of Thursday, 11th March, where a train conveying passengers and goods from Lagos to Ibadan came to a halt.
The House of Representatives is to conduct a statutory inquiry of the Nigeria Railway Corporation following the events of Thursday, the 11th day of March 2022, where a train conveying passengers and goods from Lagos to Ibadan came to a halt midway. The House is worried that the incident put the lives of innocent Nigerian travelers in danger. Describing the incident as a national embarrassment, the minority leader Ndidi Elumelu, who moved the motion of urgent public importance, further stated that this points to the inability of the management to effectively conduct routine standard operational checks, thereby raising serious issues about the safety and reliability of our rail services.
The House is disturbed that for a train to leave the station with insufficient fuel only to get stuck midway into the journey with traumatized and stranded passengers is a huge national embarrassment which not only makes our nation a laughingstock in the eyes of the international community, but a complete system failure by Nigerian Railway.
Meanwhile, aviation jet A-1 fuel is to be sold at 500 naira within the next 3 days to prevent airlines from shutting down. This is according to the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, after a meeting with marketers, regulators and airline operators. The meeting, which was presided over by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, was in continuation of the investigation over the scarcity and high cost of aviation fuel, which has led to the increase in airfares. Mr. Mele Kyari says a better pricing mechanism is to be put in place within the next 3 days to arrive at an acceptable price, and airline operators will be granted license to import aviation fuel.
What we have engaged with Moman, Dabman and the airline operators is that in 3 days' time, representations from Moman, Dabman, and the airline operators will sit down and agree on basis of a transparent basis of pricing, which means that they have to have a reference benchmark that is quoted transparently in the market. They will have a reference exchange rate for the naira so that anyone can compute, and then they will also engage and agree on a premium which is differs from customer to customer depending on the volume of the product you buy, and then the credit limit that you are able to do. So this is one thing that they can negotiate in 3 days and close so that they can going forward there's a transparent basis of pricing. This will no doubt throw off the actual value of the product in the market. You will not see these huge discrepancies that we have seen where some people are selling at 445 and some are selling at 630. This will completely bring it to almost closure that you will not see such differences.
The Senate Committee on National Security and Intelligence is asking the Nigerian Army to perform a forensic audit of its arms and ammunition to ascertain the numbers lost to terrorists during the attacks on its personnel. The committee is making the call during a public hearing on a bill to establish a national center to coordinate and control the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in the country.
Next Senate called for forensic auditing into Nigerian Army and all the security agents' armory to tell us the real problem we are having. But that is the supply source. It is only police that allowed it. Police turned out 178,000 arms and ammunition lost to the public. Police. That 178,000 arms and ammunition are enough to kill a country. The army has not told us how, because they are big people. We should know how many arms and ammunition that have been lost to Boko Haram, that have been lost to deserters. There are a lot of deserters in the army that cannot be declared.
The House of Representatives has threatened to publish the list of companies operating below the minimum safety standards as it seeks a new approach in encouraging organizations to raise safety protocols. The chairman, House Committee on Safety Standards and Regulations, Ibrahim Hamza, issued the threat after a 3-day oversight function with members of his committee in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. The Committee on Safety Standards and Regulations were in Port Harcourt recently for a 3-day oversight function to different companies in the oil, gas and maritime sector to ascertain the level of compliance with safety protocols in their operations.
This is the first time we're having a standing committee, which is going to be a continuous process. By His Grace, I am the pioneer chairman of the Health and Safety Committee in the 9th Assembly, and we hope that we have started on a good footing, and we will continue. And you know how governance is, it's a continuous process. What we are not able to do within the span of the 9th Assembly, the next Assembly will continue.
Each day, the members are ushered into boardrooms of different companies in the oil and gas sector, maritime security and logistics for briefing and debriefing. After touring several corporate organizations, the chairman of the committee says a comprehensive report will be submitted to the House for consideration, but states a likely punitive measure against defaulting companies.
By the time we roll out the status of most of these companies and foreign investors sees that they are not compliant, and the safety of the expatriates or those coming to do 1 or 2 jobs with them will not really be interested, because they cannot guarantee the lives and the safety of their staffs.
2 weeks ago, the Senate and House of Representatives voted on 68 constitution amendment bills covering a range of issues and sectors. Now, some critical bills relating to devolution of powers, good governance, Electoral Act reform were passed, while disappointingly, all gender bills were thrown out. I sat down with a public analyst, Sesu Akume, and we discussed the significance of the passage of some of the bills to the nation.
It's about the very low quality of the 9th National Assembly that has been rather very disappointing and very enervating and uninspiring. And so people got tired. It's just like they got tired of watching this regime is on its way out and holding it to account and expecting anything from it. The same thing happened with the National Assembly. And so many annoying things, like the numerous billions of naira they allocated for doing that, and nothing came out of it all that while, and everybody sort of forgot about them. Quite frankly, I, for one, too, didn't think that there was going to be a vote on the Constitution before they left.
Why do you think so?
Because they've been incompetent. Because they've not demonstrated the will and the zeal to stand up for what they ought to have been doing a long while. We've discussed that over and over again. Look at the number of loans they keep approving without any due diligence. That's a pure rubber stamp. Nigeria is drowning in loans, almost 40 trillion naira in loans. I mean, from the CBN alone, it was 648 billion naira in loans. Under Buhari alone, it went to 15 trillion naira.
I need to cut into this issue of the loans, because some would say it is also a failure of the opposition. In the National Assembly, you have opposition members. And interestingly, the chairman of the Committee on Loans is a PDP senator. That's in the Senate, is Senator Clifford Odia. And, you know, one would expect that the opposition would voice concern over these loans being approved by the National Assembly.
But that's part of the issue we have with our civil rule, because we don't have parties in the real sense of it. We just have special purpose vehicles whereby someone is in this special purpose vehicle today, in the afternoon, in the morning, by afternoon they jump ship and they're in the next one, and by evening they're possibly back in the other one, simply because they're just vehicles for winning elections. They don't have ideas or principles or ideals that they share and they believe in and they push under those parties. So in National Assembly, for instance, it's the same thing. There's no difference between what an APC person believes or what a PDP person believes or what whoever believes. They all there for self-interest and for looking after themselves, and that's what matters most.
What did you think of the bills that passed that had to do with devolution of powers from the center to the federating units? Bills like removing of railway and airports from the exclusive to the legislative list, local government autonomy. What did you make of the passage of this bill?
I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were spectacular. I have said it before, and I admit that, quite frankly, I didn't believe those would pass. And I was more than surprised that it did. Now we're looking forward to seeing the state assemblies do the same and allow that to pass. The 1999 Constitution, it is that created the problems we have with the local government system, by where it created the state-local government joint account, whereby funds going to the local government go into one pool called the state-local government joint account. And then crafty governors, the emperors at our states, now ensure that we have laws that allow them to use monies that are supposed to go to the local governments the way they want. For instance, in the Benue State local government law, it says that the governor has the authority to appropriate local government funds from the state local government joint account as he pleases, as an individual pleases. We're talking here about the rule of man, no longer the rule of law. So a governor can choose to 100 million naira is going to local government X. He can choose to give them 5 million naira and not account for the 95 million naira, and he didn't break any law based on the faulty law that was created. So this amendment does away with the state local government joint account. So you don't have any emperor governor having control over local government funds any longer. That was brilliant. And then even the judiciary, it's under the stranglehold of the executive. It's something I can't understand. In Nigeria, the judiciary is under the presidency. The National Judicial Council is an agency under the presidency. Where have you heard that before? And that's the same thing that happens at the states. So you have the entire judiciary in the pockets of governors. How can you ever have a properly functioning justice system? Same with the state assemblies. So those amendments took care of all of those.
What about the bills that had to do with good governance? That's the passage of the bill for universal basic education, the bill for timelines for the submission of ministerial nominees and commissioner nominees in the states, State of a Nation address and State of a State address. What did you think about these bills? Do you think they would truly foster good governance in the country?
I'll speak about sending the list of ministerial nominees ahead. The National Assembly passed a resolution on that. It was binding. The 8th National Assembly, that because it took 6 months before the ministerial nominees were sent in the last term, that's 2015 to 2019, in the 8th National Assembly. And they passed a resolution to say that the president has to send lists of ministerial nominees within a certain time frame, and along with their designations, so that the right committees will interview them according to the roles they're going to play. On free and universal basic education too, it's already there in the Constitution that children are supposed to have free basic education, even up to university level where the country can. But for basic education, which is primary and junior secondary school, there is the Universal Basic Education Commission, which has been allocated 100 billion naira every year for more than a decade now, in fact, since 2005. The problem, however, is the states do not even want to access the monies. If you look at reports from the executive secretaries of UBEC, they keep complaining that states and local governments are actually supposed to contribute part of the funds. Let's say you need 100 million naira, contribute 50 million naira, you get the other 50. They don't access the monies. So 100 billion naira every year since 2005, after the Universal Basic Education Law was passed in 2004. As a matter of fact, that's part of the reason the National Assembly had to cut the budget for UBEC in 2021 and 2022.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. We continue with the interview with public analyst Sesu Akume on the importance of the passage of the Constitution Amendment bills to the nation. With all that has been happening in the past few years as regards security in the country, which, quite frankly, there's a security crisis in the country. One would have expected, to see bills that could tackle security, but curiously, we didn't see it. Specifically, for the first time in the last 8 years from the 7th Assembly, we did not see any bill on the creation of state police. Why do you think this happened?
The 9th National Assembly has been the worst National Assembly in the history of the country. So for the ones that were passed, quite frankly, were taken aback and pleasantly surprised that those ones came up, really. We can't wait for them to round off, and hopefully we get Nigerians to pay attention to electing better quality people in the 10th National Assembly.
Going forward, what would you want to see in terms of how this process, because it's not been concluded, these bills will be sent to the states, voting in the states, sent back to the National Assembly, and eventually to the President. What would you want to see in wrapping up this whole process in a way that it will be favorable to Nigerians?
I think that even in the civil rule we're running, citizens have a voice. So it's for us to keep the voice up and to keep stating what we want and keep lobbying and doing whatever it is we can to make sure that the states also, because the states also pass the laws. Many of them are going. So the state assemblies need not be beholden to the emperor governors in their states. They simply need to do the right thing. I mean, just like the National Assembly, they've performed poorly beginning from the first year, but they redeemed themselves on this one. State assemblies can choose to do same now too, because everybody's complaining. Nobody's happy with the dysfunction in the country. We can fix it. The little you can do at every stage we should do it. I think the state assemblies should sit up and allow the process, the system to work for the benefit of us now and children yet unborn.
Let's take a look at some major happenings in the Senate and House of Representatives during the week.
With the unemployment rate in Nigeria at 35% and concerns of Nigeria's brightest brains leaving the country in search of better job opportunities, the House of Representatives considered a motion to grant automatic employment to first-class graduates in MDAs. Representative Chinedu Martins, who moved the motion, believes that this is one way to motivate Nigerian students.
A lot of first-class graduates are unemployed. They are all over the street, roaming without employment. When you see a third-class graduate who earns a lot of money under some president, they are duly employed, leaving the first-class students on the street. So, Mr. Speaker, the idea of this motion is to encourage hard work. If somebody graduates with the first class, it will be good that we encourage such persons with automatic employment.
While the motion sounds like a good deal, some lawmakers were opposed to it, describing it as discriminatory and that it will encourage academic corruption.
It will be much better that we identify in which area of this first class are we talking about. Is it in the area of technology? Or is this that if I read Hausa, I become first class, I should just be given an automatic employment?
We should not encourage academic corruption, because if we insist that anybody who gets first class, automatically you get employed, then at every level of the tertiary institution, people will now be pushing people, especially if you have 4.5 to cross first class and you have 4.43. They will say, this is meaning, but let's just push it.
For others, it is an all-important motion not lacking in merit.
I am persuaded by some of the arguments coming from the right honourable gentleman from Katsina, who is saying that this is already in existence. We may need to just align the two positions.
I think it's not good that somebody will burn the candle lights, midnight oil, day in, day out for years. And at the end of the day, he's thrown out on the street, he cannot get a job. Yes, NNPC and so many agencies look for the best. But I can tell you that if you go to those agencies as well, you will see people with third class or ordinary pass. Whereas those who have done much better, they'll tell them, they don't even look at their CV, they just say we are not employing. But meanwhile, you've heard them say they are employing backdoor.
While the motion is adopted, the extent to which the prayers of the motion will be implemented is highly questionable, considering that it should have come as a bill to give legal backing. There are also concerns about the already bloated civil service. Meanwhile, the House considered a motion on the urgent need to save over 900 medical officers from losing their jobs over the termination of the public-private partnership concession agreement on Garki General Hospital, Abuja.
Worried that over 900 workers, including 21 consultants, 113 medical doctors, 24 house officers, 159 nurses, 96 patient care attendants, pharmacists, medical record officers, laboratory scientists, and other technicians may lose their job. Recall that the management of the hospital had written severally to the FCT administration for a review of the concession agreement without any response until March 1st, 2022, when the FCT administration sent a letter terminating the concession agreement with Nisa Premier Hospital with the intention to take over the facility and hand over to another concessionaire.
Party chieftain and presidential aspirant Mr. Bola Tinubu arrives with Senate President Ahmad Lawan for a meeting with the Senate APC caucus at the National Assembly.
Once again, very important, as earlier announced.
The political arena has been abuzz since his formal declaration to run for the office of the president in 2023. Mr. Tinubu has been meeting with various politicians and interest groups over his presidential ambition. And it is not surprising that he's extending a visit to party members in the federal legislature to intimate them of his ambition to vie for the party's presidential ticket.
Why am I here? I came for your counsel, partnership, and support. The election is coming up in February. I can't do it by myself, and I can't do it by sitting at home, expecting that many friends, personal friends that I have here will do it for me. I believe jointly we can do it. You can back me successfully for the nomination of my lifetime ambition to become the president.
Once again, all of us wish you well, wish you the best of luck, wish you success in this. And in the affair of fighting for APC to continue to be the ruling party in Nigeria, justifiably so, Your Excellency, we are with you.
From the Senate, Mr. Tinubu moves to the meeting room in the House of Representatives to meet with over 200 APC members in the Green Chamber of the National Assembly.
We have only seen one person running up and down, traveling the length and breadth of Nigeria, giving to respect to whom respect is due.
Those who are in support of this gentleman to lead this country in 2023, please say ah.
The man of the moment reels out his resume and gives a subtle response to the public reactions regarding his health.
They didn't have anything to say, and they say it's not well. They're my doctor, let them prove it. I wasn't applying to do a mixing of concrete and sand. I'm building 24 skyscraper and only applying to do a great job, to think and do.
Mr. Tinubu would leave the National Assembly possibly satisfied with the reception from APC lawmakers. Now this is where we call it a day on this week's edition of the Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.